Connecting your reader with your novel is easy. Just hold down the pairing button and make sure Bluetooth is enabled in the general settings of your reader. Getting readers to connect with your work is the hallmark of successful writing. Engaging the reader on an emotional and intellectual level through the plot and characters you've created is basically the whole point of this exercise. And there's one big thing that your novel needs to do in order to connect with your reader. Your reader needs a way to get their arms around your story. They need some way to say that this story is something that they're going to like. Their mind needs some way to abstract and categorize the entire world that you've created. When a reader doesn't connect to a novel, it's sometimes because the writing is just bad. The descriptions don't make sense, so it's hard to picture what's happening. The dialogue sounds off, which makes the characters not seem lifelike. The prose is choppy and unpleasant to read, so they don't connect with it because the writing itself isn't great. Sometimes, though, the writing itself is not the problem. The reason readers can't connect is because they can't understand what the novel is trying to do. It gives them no signal of what it's about. If a novel can't be distilled down to an understandable description, then it may be more difficult for readers to connect with and enjoy it. Not because it's poorly written or a bad story, but because it doesn't have an identity, or at least not one that's properly communicated. We love concrete ideas in a novel. That's the basis of good writing. But our minds are natural abstraction machines. Anything you read, your mind is going to try and put into an abstract box. And if it can't, then it's going to signal to you that you shouldn't waste time with whatever it is. I've called this idea the essence of a novel before. I don't have the authority to coin terms like that, but I don't know of an existing term that describes this idea. Theme gets close, but I think this idea goes beyond theme alone and encompasses some things beyond that. Really, the essence is a grouping of separate concepts that people already talk about, things like mood, theme, tone, motifs, among many other things. Essence can be thematic, stylistic, it can be related to a specific character or a specific setting. It gives something that everything in the novel sort of points to. 1984 is about freedom and privacy, truth and narratives. When someone describes a setting as Orwellian, you know what that means. Herman Melville's whale-themed epic with a title that YouTube doesn't like me to say out loud is about revenge and nautical-themed obsession. An essence can also be built around a specific character. You know exactly what a story is going to be like if it features Sherlock Holmes or Jason Bourne. When they become prolific or famous enough, an author themselves can also denote the essence of a story. If I say it's a Stephen King or a John Grisham novel, you've probably got a pretty good understanding of what flavor it's going to be. Essence is important for the reader, but it's equally important for the writer. You need something to center your novel around, something that all your ideas can point to. This is how you decide what your story needs and what it doesn't need. If your story is about life in East Berlin right after the wall came down, then that gives you a strong direction for where all the aspects of your story, from the tone, the theme, the setting description, the characters, the dialogue, where all of that needs to point to. To be completely accurate, that kind of story should probably be written in German. When a novel lacks depth, it's sometimes because it has too much complexity. It's trying to do too many things. It's very wide, but not very deep. There are too many ideas competing for attention on any page. There's no focus, there's no direction, there's no coherent idea behind the story. The narrative just sort of wanders around aimlessly. The essence of the novel, the central idea of it, is kind of hard to pin down. You should be able to get the gist of your novel across in a few sentences. Not a summary of the plot, not a breakdown of all the nuances of your theme, but a very brief description of the main thrust of the narrative. If you can't do that, it could be a sign that your novel is too scattered, too broad, or that you haven't really figured out what the story is trying to tell. This has practical implications as well. If you want to eventually sell your novel, this is exactly the sort of information that's necessary for it to be packaged up. When someone reads a blurb about a book, it's the essence of that book that's communicated, and that's what makes them want to buy it, among other things, but that's a major part of it. Essence ultimately is the reason to read the story and the reason that you wrote the story. If you don't know what you're trying to get out of the story, then you're unlikely to get it. Not every novel needs to get across some grand thematic idea or bring light to some kind of societal issue or pick apart some universal aspect of the human experience, but there needs to be some kind of reason to read it. That reason could just be that it's pleasantly written, or humorous, or relates an experience from a likable set of characters. Very few romances or mysteries delve deep into these broad, esoteric, thematic ideas, but those kinds of novels have a very strong essence, and it's an essence that readers connect with. There's no need to uproot some hidden philosophical wisdom in every single novel, but you do need to give the reader a reason to read it. Figuring out what the essence of your novel is one thing, signaling it to the reader is another matter entirely. How exactly the essence gets signaled is going to depend on exactly what it is. If it's a character-based essence, that's going to require a very well-developed and very well-characterized character. If it's something about the setting, that's going to require an accurate description to make the reader feel like they're in that setting. If it's related to a bigger thematic or philosophical idea, then your plot and your characters and your setting are going to have to communicate that idea in some way. Now, this is ultimately something that I don't think you should put a ton of direct effort into trying to create. I think the essence is something that will emerge out of your story when you've put enough work into it. When you have well-developed characters and a plot that addresses a conflict, the things that go into the essence will begin to appear. The work is more internal. It's about your own understanding. And once you have that understanding about your story, then you can see what parts contribute or don't contribute to the essence. A simpler way to say that might be that the essence really gets discovered. It's not something that's deliberately crafted. It's discovered through the deliberate crafting of a good story, not through the deliberate crafting of an essence, if that makes any sense. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I'd love to hear what you think about this idea in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.